I'm at an old cottage built in 1896, but it's on an island in a river. So if you're trying to physically isolate, that's not a bad place to be. But it's still relatively close to regular society for supplies and medical care if we need it. But I'm here with family, and it's on the border between Canada and the United States, Michigan, Ontario, about a 3-hour drive from Toronto. And spring is just arriving in Canada. Nice place to be.
Certainly, and a nice time to get outside, but that's not necessarily recommended at this point. So yeah, how, obviously you have a lot of experience in self-isolation, but your family doesn't necessarily. How are you all coping?
I think like a lot of people around the world, we're put into a new set of circumstances. You're right. I've lived off the world for half a year in a tiny little confined space surrounded by danger, which is kind of an exaggerated example, I think, of what everybody's dealing with. And right now it's myself, my wife, our daughter-in-law, and our granddaughter, so that we're not normally a quartet together. And we've been this way for a couple months. So it's different, but it's fine. And there's a million things to do every day. We're busy. We're getting to know each other a lot better, taking care of each other, but still allowing each of us to pursue, even the 4-year-old, to pursue their own interests and be productive. So yeah, it's not a normal time, but it's not by definition a bad time either. It's an interesting period of life as the whole world comes through this tunnel looking for light on the other side.
Yeah, I mean, it is certainly extraordinary times. And I saw on your Twitter feed that it was recently your father's birthday. A strange time to have a birthday. And I know,
Yeah, he's 86 too. So he was born during the Great Depression and then was a child during World War II. So he has quite a different frame of reference than someone who was born when I was or someone when you were, Willie. So it's different. And he's dealing with it fine. When you're 86, you've had a lot of birthdays. It's not that important to him. My 4-year-old granddaughter is far more interested in a birthday than my father is. But yeah, he and my mom are still living on the farm and taking care of each other. My sister is there taking care of them. So it's just a small, microcosm of family. I think that's what a lot of people are experiencing. But of course, you could celebrate your birthday in a whole new way. Get 100 friends. How old are you? You're 36. Get 36 friends to all light you a candle and each of them sing you a song or make you a present or whatever. Just you can celebrate. Living on a spaceship, you have to be creative, and no matter what drives your isolation, same thing.
Yeah, and on that note, I mean, how do you think your time in space helped prepare you for what we're all experiencing?
I didn't just suddenly show up in space, of course. I was an astronaut for 21 years and studied pretty much every day for 21 years. The technical side of it is a big mental load, but also the psychological side, the mental demands and emotional demands of being in a very dangerous place, constantly omnipresent danger around you, and having nobody there really to help you but yourselves, you and your crew members and whoever else you can reach out to electronically. So that preparation for that, the study of it, the deep technical learning, but also the psychological simulation of it, I think that helped. And the main thing is not to be paralyzed by fear, which it's pretty easy to do right now. You turn on the internet or turn on a television or a radio, everybody's screaming at you with some statistic, and the numbers seem huge. 750,000 people infected with this. And that is a big number, but when you compare it to 7.7 billion, it's a tiny number, and so what really matters is what are the actual facts here and how they, impact me. That's the real critical part of it. Don't just be paralyzed by some big amorphous fear, but actually dig into the details. Meteorites hit the world all the time. 40 tons a day hits the world, and you're on a little spaceship. You could spend your whole time shivering and terrified, but instead figure out the actual odds and figure out what you're going to do if you get hit by a meteorite, have a good plan, practice it, and then carry on. And then you can deal with the danger. And that's, I think, important for this. Truly become your family's expert on COVID. Be the one who knows the most about exactly what the risk is, what the symptoms look like, how you're going to treat it, where you're going to go with medical care. You know, should you use Excedrin or aspirin or Tylenol? You know, actually dig into the right ideas here so that you're not just scared, but you're actually informed. And then you can get on with the rest of your day and the rest of your life.
And I want to go into those tips that you have, but just before, I mean, are there any specific kind of types of training that you did to prepare yourself for the, you know, enormity of space isolation that perhaps can be replicated here?
Well, we did specific training. We did Arctic survival, where you're in a very harsh, cold environment. We did desert survival, did mountain survival. We took a team of people back into the woods for 2 weeks with a whole bunch of objectives and no help from anywhere. I lived at the bottom of the ocean for 2 weeks, inside a tiny little habitat as the commander of a crew of 6. Where you can't leave, because if you came rapidly up to the surface, the gases would boil out of your blood and you get the bends. So being truly physically isolated with a whole bunch of things to do in a set of very confined and uncomfortable circumstances. All of those things, they teach you some technical skills, but they also kind of put your psychological side into perspective. And I think that's the part people can learn from. Just because your normal life is now shifted into a different normal life, it's not by definition bad. It's just different. I mean, change can be hard, but I mean, you're alive and you're finding food to eat and you've got the entire internet at your fingertips. So just shift what you're doing and find a way to not let the change of circumstance be a huge negative. I learned that in all of those different types of simulated training. And it allowed us, like the crew that's up there right now, to thrive, to love the experience of being on board a spaceship, even though you could just as easily say, hey, I'm locked in a tiny little tin can with nothing to do, and I'm choosing to hate it. It's a lot of personal decisions, and I learned that through all the years of astronaut preparation and training.
Yeah, and you know what? I've never really aspired to go to space, but right now that spaceship sounded pretty good to me.
Yeah.
So, you know, you've spoken a lot about goal setting. How important is that for people, you know, facing self-isolation and the idea of not being able to perhaps, you know, go about their normal lives for quite some time?
Well, look at your life 2 months ago. A lot of it was externally dictated. When do you have to go to work? When are the banks open? When are the restaurants open? What is the normal cycle of a day? Who do you have to have obligatory activities to? You know, your day was largely regimented by the lifestyle that you'd chosen. Well, that's all sort of blown up right now. You know, what is your regular pattern of your day right now? It's kind of vague and non-specific. And so a lot of people, I think, are feeling pointless. You know, what am I going to do? Because I don't have all my normal stuff to do. Well, the days are still 24 hours long and you're still the same person. And so I think you need to substitute for the externally driven pattern of your life in whatever free time you're getting that you're not used to right now. Actually substitute pattern in your life. It happens on a spaceship. You know, give yourself the things, make a list right now of 20 things you want to get done in the next month, because this could easily last another month of isolation. So what, 30 days? You can do it standing on your head. But actually make up a list. And some of the stuff could be stupid. Like this, I'm staying in this little old cabin built in 1896. And there's this big bucket of keys that has been collecting for like 50 years. And I've been looking at it going, man, someday I should figure out what all those keys. Yesterday, I took 2 hours and I went around and tried every key in every lock. And I found several that fit. It was like, oh, cool. And a whole bunch that didn't. And it's not an important thing. It's just a thing that I've been meaning to do for years. I finally had the time to do it. I got a bunch of keys thrown away. I have now a bunch of spare keys and go on to the next thing. Play with my granddaughter. I'm studying the geology of the moon right now. It's really fascinating how billions of years ago, all the minerals of the mantle of the moon swapped ends because of convective and gravitational forces. You know, there's a lot of cool stuff, and whatever is interesting to you is right available to study. But give yourself some regimen to your day and a list of stuff you want to do, and then more importantly, start doing things. Just get at it. Go do one thing. It gives you an inertia. You know what it's like to go surfing. If you don't paddle like crazy and start catching that wave, you'll never get to ride a wave. And if you just start doing things, your day starts to pick up steam like you're riding a wave. And at the end of the day, it's like, hey, nobody really cares what I did today, but I did some stuff that was cool for me, and I got tomorrow as well. So I think giving yourself purpose and doing it on deliberately, and the people around you, is a healthy thing.
For sure. Now, there have been some reports of people perhaps trying to be overly ambitious and then getting demoralized, of trying to, learn a new language. Or, I mean, how important is it to create achievable goals?
Oh yeah, don't say I'm going to learn a new language. That's crazy. But you could say, this week I am going to learn 20 words in whatever, Japanese. Anybody can learn 20 words in a week. I mean, you can do that. Practice them. Take little stickies and write them on the things in your living room, and learn those 20 things in your kitchen. So break it into pieces that are actually doable. Don't say I'm going to get fit. That's a never-ending process of incremental change. But you could say, hey, every time I take a shower, I'm going to do 15 push-ups first, or whatever. I'm going to, while I watch this show on Netflix, I'm going to do jumping jacks for a half hour. Don't give yourself a crazy goal. Give yourself a thing to do. They're different, but have them serve your long-term goals. And don't say, I'm going to write a novel. Stay and said, I'm going to write 100 words today. And you can write 100 words today. And I'm writing a fourth book right now. And so I have to practice what I preach. But sitting down and actually writing is a really stimulating mental exercise. And at the end of it, you've got a thing that you've created that didn't exist. It's like a cake or a painting. This is a collection of thoughts. Do that for yourself.
And so what, back to this idea of anxiety, why are people anxious by this feeling of home or self-isolation? Because, I mean, you live there.
Right. I think it's kind of the perfect recipe to pull at people's fears. It's like zombies, which don't exist, but everyone's got this fear of them because they're kind of creepy and dangerous and scary and unstoppable. Sort of like COVID. It's this deathly thing, and you can't see it, and you might have it, and it's killing people, and you can watch the numbers mounting online, and that kind of pulls at a lot of our primal fears, and you're kind of helpless to protect yourself from it. It's not like a fire you can put out or something. It's this sneaking, scary, dangerous thing. And so how do you deal with that? And you're at home, so your life is disrupted. You don't have your regular comfort of pattern. You're jerked around by the circumstances. And so you have to break out of that. And the first part is, don't just let it be this scary unknown fear. Actually dig into it and become expert on it and learn the details. So that at least you've got something concrete that you're dealing with. And then recognize that your patterns have changed, but so what? Just because, you think, oh, I'm all cooped up. You're always all cooped up. It's not like you're everywhere in the universe simultaneously up until 2 weeks ago. You always had a very small part of the world that you traveled in. It's just changed a little. So it's almost entirely your perception of how big your current universe is. And you're only sort of limited by your imagination, and you're hugely aided by the access to everything that's right there at your fingertips. So I think if you can get past sort of the gut reaction of fear and change, and look into knowledge and opportunity, that psychologically can really help.
And why do you think there's been such a sort of disparate reaction to COVID-19, while some people say, oh, it's not, it's being completely blown out of proportion, and other people, think it's apocalyptic?
Well, I don't really pay a lot of attention to gossip, and a lot of what you hear is just gossip. It's like the two old men sitting down in the cafe telling you how the whole world works without any facts. And you could listen to them; it's sort of entertaining, but that's not a place to draw your action plan from. And there's all sorts of gossip out there. And as far as the apocalypse, there's been people holding up signs saying the world is ending forever because it makes them feel very important with absolutely no effort, right? If the world is going to end while I'm alive, then I'm significant. And if it doesn't, then I'm sort of insignificant. So, there's a lot of that natural psychology going on. The reality is you're just you. You've got your particular strengths and weaknesses and skills and ignorances. You've got your own set of constraints and opportunities. And all that really matters is, what are you going to do next? How are you going to deal with those things? There's always danger out there. Just this one's got a big name, and it's worldwide right now. But the vast majority of humanity is going to come out of this okay. It's a horrible disease for the people that are at certain stages of their life, who have certain medical conditions, or occasionally folks that even seem very healthy. So there's no guarantees in this, but there's never a guarantee in life. We all die eventually. The real question is, what have you got, and what are you doing with it? And given the circumstances you're in. And although the circumstances have changed, that fundamental reality hasn't changed. So a lot of people are making a huge deal of it because their lives have shifted a little. I think that's normal and understandable. But you have to decide what you're going to do about it. And I'm working on a lot of different things, some very personal, some very public, to try and make the best of this, just like I always do.
And I want to hear about those. But first, you have spent time in self-isolation in space, and then you've come back to Earth. Obviously, we're going to get through this, and people are going to have to, re-emerge from their hibernation, so to speak. What kind of challenges might we actually, might they face as they, re-socialize?
Well, I don't think anybody accurately knows the answer to that question. And so it's a great opportunity. I imagine you've thought about it, but as soon as the governments and then the organizations of the world say, okay, we now have this increased amount of social freedom because our medical systems have kept up, or we found a vaccination or whatever, what's everybody going to need, either physically or mentally? What are people going to rush to? What are the things that are going to require a whole bunch of support? And start thinking about those. What businesses, what opportunities are there? There are some companies that are going to fold as a result of this. Some are just going to scrape through, and some are going to do crazy well. And how are you going to get into that? And how are you going to sort of emerge out of your little cocoon and become whatever you're going to become after? What are you going to have learned from this and position yourself to come out the other side, maybe in a better position than you were before? How can you make that happen, or at least as good as circumstances will allow? It's not easy, but the world has been here for 4.5 billion years. There's been life on this planet for 4 billion. This is a tough, relentless process. We're just the current residents on board. But what you do in your individual life is really important. So plan ahead 1 month, 3 months, 6 months. When I came back from a space flight, it was overwhelming at first, the noise and the tumult and gravity and readjustment. But there's also a whole world of opportunity. I came back from one of the rarest of human experiences, to talk to everybody in the world about it, to write books about it, to do a master class. I teach at university. I help with a space technology incubator. I run a little space exploration company called Open Lunar Foundation. All of those things are sort of the result of rolling back to Earth, coming down through the atmosphere, rolling back to Earth, standing up and going, wow, what am I going to do next? And that's a little bit where we all are, especially a couple months from now.
For sure. And so you want to talk to me a little bit about the project that you had mentioned earlier?
Yeah, one of the big impediments right now is you can't tell if someone has been exposed to COVID or, has it in their body or not, unless you do a swab and then spend a while analyzing it, which takes quite a while, or, draw blood, which is even more invasive. I'm working with a company called Iceberg that you just put your fingertip on top of a little light sensor. It looks at the spectrum of your blood and then does the analysis using artificial intelligence, and it'll tell you in 10 or 15 seconds whether you have any of the reaction of the body to COVID or not. If we can make that work, and we're just in medical trial right now, then you could open up airports again. Because just like doing your passport, you put your finger down, 10 seconds later, green light, red light. Or you could have a football match, because everybody could quickly scan, just wipe little alcohol, keep the thing clean for everybody. That type of technology may be really important to start opening up society again. It's almost like a tricorder on Star Trek, where you can just do a quick analysis and tell you about someone. So that technology, I think, is really important. I hope we can make that work, and we should know really shortly. But there's a lot of medical people and inventive people working around the world to try and figure out what solutions do we need right now in order to get back to as normal a life as possible and keep as many people as healthy as possible.
Yeah, and that's certainly something that I find comfort in.
Yeah, well, me too. And we'll get there. But the speed with which we get there and the number of people that get there, that's largely dependent on how creative we can all be right now.
Yeah, I saw an interview with Bill Gates and I earlier last week, and I felt he almost is feeling a little like Cassandra right now from Troy, having sort of predicted these things.
Yeah, well, that's not the only thing Bill Gates predicted, and it's easy in retrospect. I mean, Nostradamus looks like a genius, but he predicted, what was he, 1 in 1,000 that was correct, so it's like, yeah. I mean, Bill Gates, huge respect for Bill Gates. I admire him. I think he's doing magnificent things globally with the wealth that he created. But yeah, I told you so doesn't ever help. What really matters is, okay, we maybe should have paid more attention to this in the past, but now we have to. Let's take what we got and move forward. And he and his wife are doing an admirable job of that also.
Wonderful. And I guess before we hang up, could you tell me what is the single most important lesson that you learned in space and in life?
Oh, that's a big question, Willie. I think the two of them are the same for me. I mean, I was an astronaut for 21 years and I flew in space 3 times. So the full 21 years of training and development and then the spaceflight experience, they're all one experience to me. It's not like, they were individual. I think the most critical part of it all for me is to not squander the life that you have. And you are not the best in the world in anything. And you are not the worst at the world in anything. Even if you were, that would only be a transient condition. That's only one person out of 7.7 billion. You are just someone in the middle, like everyone else. And what really matters is to make the most of what you were born with, to be relentless in your sort of improvement and what you can do with the raw material that you have, and then your optimistic resilience in dealing with life as it comes and moving on to the next thing. To me, that's what I came away with. To fly a rocket ship, you have to be an optimist, of course, to some degree. But to see the world, I've been around it 2,600 times. You become intensely aware of the incredible age and toughness of the planet. And it makes you optimistic. Life is tough. The planet is tough. And yeah, we got things we got to deal with always. But this is here to stay longer than we can imagine. And there is tremendous opportunity. And the beauty of it is it turns and you get a new opportunity every 24 hours. So don't squander that. Don't get off on some tangent. Recognize your own potential. Never be satisfied with your own competence at anything. Always be improving and look for what you can do next. To me, that's how I lived every day, getting ready to fly in space. It's how I made the most of each day on the spaceship, and it's the philosophy that I run my whole life with. And to me, it makes everything much more joyful and productive. And even when you're safe at home, working our way through a global pandemic, it's the same.
That's great. Thank you so much. It was an absolute pleasure speaking with you.
Nice speaking with you as well. Be well. Take care of yourself and everybody around you.